I hear this all the time. Shot placement is the only thing that matters. It's like, well, not really, right? I mean,
Not,
if you get big enough, not really.
I can shoot an elk with a 416 Remington in the guts, and he won't make it any more than 10 or 15 yards.
All right, Tim, I have been looking forward to this podcast for a while, man. I've been watching you grow on YouTube and tons of good stuff. I love it. Like, I'll admit the ones that really jump out to me are the Forest Service ones. I've dealt with the Forest Service my whole life, so I love that. Love the firearm stuff. Love the hunting stuff. So, and immediately a couple of them caught my attention. I clicked the thumbnail and I'm like, we'll see if this guy actually knows what he's talking about. And then I start hearing the stories. I'm like, oh yeah, he's been there. So so that caught my attention. I'm glad to have you on. But dude, I'm gonna ask you a awkward question off the bat. How old are you? Is it true you're 67, man?
Yeah, I'm not very far away from 68 as we speak.
Dude, you look 50. And so I'm like, what I want to know, like, what is this guy eating? Is the trick just hanging around beautiful women and chasing Cape Buffalo? What's the story, dude?
Maybe that is it. I didn't think about that. I think for me, mostly it's the fact that I never let myself get too far out of shape. I'm so busy these days that I'm not working out on a regular basis. But it's a lifetime of breathing fresh air, climbing mountains with a heavy backpack, and when I'm not doing that, I was always doing cardio of some kind until about the last 5 years. I've really slacked off because I'm too busy. And I hate being that busy because it impacts your health when you don't take the time to work out. But most of that is just always staying fit, I think.
Like, don't get into the volatility cycle of unfit, fit during the season type of deal.
Not too much. I have been lately, but I eat a lot of junk food. But I've never been a smoker, and I'm not much of a drinker. I didn't really start drinking until my 50s, and still I don't drink much.
Sure.
So but I do eat junk food. Hey, there's nothing like a Hostess, those white sugar donuts.
Sure.
I can eat a case of those while I'm driving out to a spot to hunt.
Yeah, but I imagine you're pretty active though, man. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it seems like you get out quite a bit. And your advice is what I've heard a lot of guys that are a couple, a decade older than me or whatever, say the same thing. Like, dude, the trick is just stay in shape. So I appreciate that advice. I think it's a good one. I bring it up, Tim, because I'm kind of dealing with that. I just turned 40, and I turned 40 more than a year ago, but I'm at that zone, and I've started to deal with that, like not being just naturally able to stay in shape all year. Like, I can feel myself gain a little weight, and then I'm like, oh, I got to stop this right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been battling with weight gain my whole life. I mean, I'm not naturally thin. My genetic father always carried a gut and extra weight around. And my mother, who was naturally thin, even she would fluctuate up and down 20, 25 pounds, depending on what was going on in her life at the time. So I've been battling weight gain my whole life. The real secret is don't overeat. Like, if you sit down to a really nice dinner, eat half of it, put saran wrap over the other half, and put it in the fridge, and then eat it for lunch tomorrow or whatever. And then, really honestly, just if I go out and hike all the time, even if they're only short 4, 5, 6 mile hikes, I'm carrying a backpack, I'm carrying a rifle, I'm carrying binoculars. That adds to the calorie burn right there. But all summer long, I love to hike. I mean, my wife and I go out and hike a ton, and I go out and hike alone. And even if I go like for an ATV ride or a horse ride, I still get off and go climb a mountain here or climb a hill there because I want to see what's down in that big basin. Hey, that's a basin I've never looked into. And that's how I know so many honey holes, by the way, is all that summer hiking activity. I mean, I go out and kill elk like it's just like falling off a log. It's just gravity to me. Well, that's because of all that hiking and outdoor time. I mean, elk are actually much easier to kill than a good trophy mule deer.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
elk are easy.
But you bring up a good point. I deal with it in my content, Tim. It's like the knowing an area and then developing a feel for where animals are going to be. You can't learn it on YouTube, dude. Like
Mhm.
you have, it's just a time thing. For better or worse, that's a reality of what people have to face, and it's interesting to hear it in the context of like your lifestyle. Sounds like it's been an important part of like staying in shape and staying healthy and all that. And I'm gonna go down the entrepreneurial question path a little bit with you, and then we'll get into the firearm stuff and politics. But do you have a thought on, you've you founded Buffalo Boar and grew it? Is that correct, Tim?
Yeah, in my early
Yeah.
30s, I just I was friends with John Linebaugh, and he was making custom revolvers in 500 Linebaugh and 475 Linebaugh, and he was actually the impetus. He kept pushing me. Look, if you'll bring out commercial ammo, and commercial ammo is available, then my guns will no longer be a hand loading only
Oh,
proposition,
sure.
and I'll be able to sell a lot more guns. I'll be able to employ my sons, keep them busy, and teach them the trade. I'll be able to make all the guns I want because ammo will be available. So, with that, I ran with that, knowing that if I commercialize the two biggest, baddest at the time handgun cartridges in existence, I'll get all kinds of publicity in the gun magazines. This was before internet was big. So
Sure.
back in the day, we actually had printed gun magazines. We actually read newspapers and, read out of books. And so,
knew how
um,
to knew how to write in cursive, dude. They're
yeah,
not even teaching my kids how to write in cursive anymore.
and even knew where to put commas and periods, you know, I mean, and where to capitalize a letter and stuff. But
Sure.
anyway, so I did that. I invested the money, worked with a company called Starline that makes brass. They made the casings for me if I ordered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them, which was very expensive. And I got free ink because I was doing new cartridges that had never been done before. And so with that, I piggybacked, and this was a plan. I mean, I'm a
Okay.
manipulator. I mean, and manipulation is not necessarily, doesn't have to have a bad connotation to it. I mean, I knew I'd get ink, so since I was going to get ink, I came out with 44 mag cartridges,
But
45.
by ink, you mean marketing? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah. Yeah.
I
Okay.
knew I
Yeah.
was going to get written about,
Yeah.
I mean, and so, okay, I'll piggyback a bunch of other stuff on top of that. And I didn't have a website. Websites weren't popular back then,
For sure.
and that was on the cusp of websites and people ordering, over the internet. That was all way too new to be popular.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, our company grew. We got lots of written word ink. I mean, people wrote us up all over the place. And then a few short years after that, I started digital websites, and it. The first 10 years, I didn't make anything. I pretty much lived off savings and worked real hard. Um,
Yeah.
but after that, the floodgates opened. People found out how good our products were, and how innovative my thinking was, which came just from killing stuff. I mean, I have killed so much stuff over the course of decades. I know what kind of bullet designs work and what don't, and so that caught on, and the rest is history, as they say.
Tim, so it's funny because this brings up, I think, a very interesting dynamic to me. So the dynamic you're talking about, you're a guy who's using the product. You've got real in the field experience, and so you build a product out of that, right? And then even back when you built Buffalo Boar, there was people doing the same thing that exists today. There's a lot of people marketing things on the internet within the hunting space, shooting space, but also every other space, who they don't even like. It's basically I don't want to call it a fraud, but it kind of is. Like it's not based on anything other than them just like building something up they want to sell. And that's not a new thing. And people, every day I hear about that in the hunting space. Like people act like it's a new thing. That like there's these influencers that are making things up that's not based on like real world experience. It's like, well, it's been around forever. You know what I mean? I mean, do you have thoughts on that? Do you think in the end? I mean, it's obviously been a good business model for you just to like just sell something that works. Do you think that's the end result, or do you have thoughts on that dynamic?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on it. I'll give you a perfect example of what you're talking about. The 6.5 Creedmoor wasn't even as powerful as the 260 Remington, which is another 6.5 cartridge, and it's a lot less powerful than like the 6.5 by 284 Norma or the 6.5 30-06. And but it was, and Hornady is a genius at this. He's got the marketing capability to make anything into a thing, whether
Sure,
it's a thing or not. And they'll market the living daylights out of something. Now everybody wants a 6.5 Creedmoor. It's the best elk cartridge ever at 1,000 yards, blah, 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 which is total BS. And so for a 10-year span or longer, the 6.5 Creedmoor was a thing. And now it's no longer a thing. You can only trick the public into buying something by naming it something different and advertising it than the cartridges that were already there before the 6.5 Creedmoor. You can only get them to go do that stuff for so long before people scratch their heads and go, hey, wait a minute. Wait a
sure.
minute. This 6.5 Creedmoor is nothing compared to these other 6.5 cartridges. And, the best of the new ones that are out is probably the 6.5 PRC.
Yeah,
Well, you can't market it all that much because they already pulled that bull crap with the Creedmoor. So people are a lot less believing now. And now you got to go market some other new thing, let's call it, there's so many of them that come out and they're short lived, most of them.
sure.
The Creedmoor had long legs, but now it's not a thing either.
What
People know they were deceived, basically.
I'm pretty naive to this part of the business, Tim. So, do you have thoughts on other than just marketing dollars? Do you have thoughts on why some cartridges are around for decades and why some cartridges are there for a year and then nobody talks about them again? Is there in your mind is there criteria that makes that more likely or less likely?
Yeah, there is. And one of the big things is if it's a military cartridge, like the
Okay,
like the 30-06 was, or the 308 was, or the 223 Remington still is. And the 308 still is too.
hmm,
Um, if that happens and you move it into the civilian market, um, that's just a huge way to accelerate any rifle or handgun market, is to say, well, military uses this. I mean, a lot of people serve in the military, come home, and they're very familiar with the 308 or the 223 or the 9 millimeter. I mean, it's a NATO cartridge. Well, that's a military cartridge.
sure.
That's why our military switched from the 45 ACP to the 9mm, was so that they could have compatibility with the international military markets, and
And,
some
and,
people.
and that I think I have another follow on, man, because this whole thing is very intriguing to me because it's not just with cartridges and firearms and stuff. The way that military use on other gear will accelerate the growth of products is very interesting to me. I actually just watched I just listened to a podcast, man. I'll send you a link to it and I'll put a link in the show notes for people. I can't remember the name of it, but it was like it was kind of a left-leaning series of podcasts, but it was about, the design of gear, like outdoors gear over the years. And it's all about military, but I'm not talking about like the last 20 years. I'm talking, it's been that way since the turn of the century. You know, it
Turn
was who,
last century, yeah.
yeah. And it's very interesting. So anyways, my question is like the popularity of the 223, the 308, the 30-06, and then as it, the military was a boost for it. Now, are there functional reasons with like the capacity of the ammo coming out? Like, I mean, in terms of the volume of the ammo coming out, in terms of the infrastructure that supports it? Or do you think it's mainly a marketing thing? People are like, well, if the military uses it, I should use it. Is like, which one of those do you think is most important?
It's a combination of a couple things. One of those things is marketing. And,
Okay.
I wish that wasn't so. I mean, we do need some marketing, but the tendency that corporations have, or that basic mortal humans have, is to oversell. It's kind of a greed motivation. I'm going to oversell this. I'm going to make it into something it isn't. And then the other part of that, along with the military, is if it actually works. People get it out in the woods and they
Sure.
use it and it works. And I mean, let's not forget that the 4570 was originally a military cartridge back in 1873, I think. They started making their Springfield trapdoors chambered in 4570. Well, that thing just worked. I mean, and so the 4570 is still here with us today, very modernized. And but if things work and they have a military backing, and then they get the whole marketing backing for the new version, like I'm
Sure.
just waiting for a 4570 Creedmoor to come out, whatever.
Sure. Yeah, no, I got you. It's interesting in history, and as you point out, and this comes from my end where I'm not a obsessive, the next cartridge guy, or I don't have near the knowledge base that you do on all the different cartridges. You see things come out now and they're named XYZ, but essentially the same thing may have come out 30 years ago.
Or 50 or 60 or 70 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah, I
And it
see
just,
tons of that.
yeah, and things just don't align. It didn't align back then, but now it's aligning. So it's kind of like, all right, guys, in some of my content, you're going to see that I've been using this chest holster from Invader Concepts. This is with my 10mm. I also use it with my Glock 19 and even a PMR 30. I'm going to do a bunch of content here in the next couple months on that around bear defense. It should be interesting. It looks a little awkward to have your gun under your bino harness, but if you test out all the different variations, it is the best and you have it on you all the time. I do have a discount code. It's CliffG, and it's for 10% off. Go check them out. What do you think about the new technology in the cases? So the 277 Fury, the 7mm backcountry. Do you have a thought on where that stuff's going to go?
Time is going to tell. And if I can take a short action rifle cartridge like a 7mm08, which is just a 308 case, neck down to 7mm, if I can take one of those and effectively in the very same rifle run it at much higher pressures because of what the casing is made out of, and I can turn that into almost a 7mm Remington mag or a 7mm PRC, and it's still just this little short action cartridge. Gosh, I see advantages there, but time will tell on how much hotter you can run those and get the brass to hold up. And there's going to be other elements involved in that. Is this brass reloadable? That's a big segment of the hunting market.
Sure.
It's not the biggest segment of the hunting or shooting market. The biggest segment of the hunting and shooting market when it comes to ammo is factory ammo.
Right.
But a lot of people, if that case can be reloaded, and if they can get, say, a 200 foot a second advantage in all bullet weights by using a steel casing as opposed to a brass casing, yes, it'll have legs.
Yeah. I have a thought for you on that. I only say this because I think this way. and it may just be me. So tell me if there's no market segment like this, but I used to reload, and now just with life and everything. And then also what I've seen is some improvements in ammo, at least the stuff that I shoot a lot of. I don't reload anymore. Like I just haven't got all my stuff out since I moved 4 years ago. Right. So I used to reload, but when I look at those cartridges, I view myself as a non-reloader now, but there's a part of me that says, I'm not going to buy them, or I'm not going to buy rifles chambered in them, because the fact that they're not reloadable worries me. It just because I could have a rifle that's completely obsolete. At least if it was reloadable in that cartridge, I could say, okay, if the ammo dries up in the future, at least I have this option of reloading it myself as long as I have brass. Do you think, and I know that could just be like hype, like it's kind of, when I say it out loud, I think to myself, that's an idiotic way of thinking about it. But I think a lot of people go that route. Do you have thoughts on it?
Oh, I just think you're right. It's not idiotic, because there is a segment, and a growing segment still, of hand loaders. And I think there is, I mean, a lot of preppers are hand
Sure.
loaders. And, I never thought of myself as a prepper. I just thought of myself as smart.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to rely on the government to provide goods and services, are you? I mean, if you were born yesterday, I can see that. But if you
Right.
live any more than about to age 5, you
Sure.
know
Yeah.
the government is the most inconsistent, unprepared, erratic, dishonest thing to rely on. So if you're going to rely on them to provide you water and police services and fire services and all that, hey, you need to be somewhat independent. And so if that means you buy a lot of factory ammo and store it, that's fine. Or if you can hand load and recreate ammo, that's fine too.
Right.
But
Yep.
I think it's a huge segment of what makes cartridges last, in the public eye. Can I reload this? I think it's, it might be 10 or 15 or 20% of what makes a cartridge successful and gives it lasting qualities.
Sure. Yeah. And then just general ammo availability too, even outside of the reload thing. Like
Mhm.
how much of it can you get? At least it's the way I give a lot of advice. I get a lot of guys that ask me about cartridges for their first elk hunting rifle. It could be a 35-year-old guy that didn't have a dad that hunted, was never around hunting. He just wants to get a rifle, and he's already just getting hit with all the marketing of all the new cartridges. And I usually will tell them, I'll say, hey man, get a 308, get a 30-06, get a 7 mag.
Mhm.
You're going to get a lot of pushback from people because they're going to say there's all these superior things, but there is something about just being able to like get the ammo economically, get the ammo at Walmart. It's just, there is something about that that's nice.
Um, a few of these new cartridges, I think, have legs because there's actual merit to them, like the 7 PRC, the 6.5 PRC. But honestly, if you want a cartridge that can do everything the 7 PRC can do out to 400 and 500 yards, how can you beat a 06? If
Yeah,
and how can you beat a 7mm Remington mag? I
sure.
mean, the 7mm Remington mag, unless you want to shoot at 1,000 yards, the 7mm Remington mag is slightly more powerful than the 7 PRC.
Right.
But the 7 PRC comes with rifles with faster twist rates, longer, heavier bullets. So if you want to shoot past 500 yards, that's where those longer, heavier bullets start to have an advantage in drop and retained energy and wind drift, you know. But if you're not going to shoot past 600 yards, and you want a 7mm Remington mag, if you've got an accurate one, the 7 PRC offers you absolutely nothing.
Right. Yeah, particularly if you think about the practicalities. I think a lot of the buying is aspirational. Someday I'm going to shoot at an elk at 850 yards. And it's like, nah, like you're not going to. It does it's like, I mean some people will, they'll make that choice, but I'm saying like if people are rational about what the opportunities they're actually going to have probably in a lifetime, or the skill set they're going to build up to do things or whatever, the difference between a 7 mag and a 7 PRC, it doesn't matter. It's like literally irrelevant, but it's still such a huge part of the buying process. I think it's very interesting.
So if I count Kim's, I think I have 6 or 7 Remington mags. I don't have a 7 PRC because I don't plan to ever make ammo for it. And we never shoot animals past 500 yards. So why have one? I have 8 different 6.5 cartridges, the 6.5-06, the 6.5 284, all of those. I don't have a 6.5 Creedmoor. In fact, I've made it a goal to never own one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get caught up in media hype. If there's benefit to it, give me media hype. If there isn't, shut up.
Yeah, I gotcha. So this is a perfect segue into like one topic I wanted to talk to you in depth about, Tim. And I'm sure people who follow me and follow you are hoping that we discuss this whole like size of, caliber / cartridge choice for elk. And this gets back to the video. So it caught my eye because the thumbnail on it, or at least the one that you were using when I saw it, said "No apologies," and it's your most controversial video of 2025. And so I listened to this, and I will tell you up front that so I grew up shooting. I've shot at like, as a kid growing up with a dad that was elk hunting outfitter. Like I shot a lot of elk growing up and and I shot a 7 mag and a 270. I shot a 270 when I was little and a 7 mag. I've killed more elk with those 2 cartridges than anything else by a ton. In the last 2 years, I have shot quite a few elk and other game with cartridges on the small side. So I've used the Creedmoor. I've shot elk with the 6mm Creedmoor even. I've shot a lot of elk with the 270. And so I've tried that a bit, and I've always kind of had this mindset, like I'm open to anything, right? So I'm still in like the personal testing phases of all of this. Now, the reason I wanted to give you that context. When I listened to this video that you did, I recommend everybody go watch it. You had a very interesting take on shooting large cartridges that I think is right on the money on a very good justification for shooting them. And I preface this with that a lot of guys I'll preface it with this. I personally shoot these smaller cartridges way better. If I just look at my own, if I assess my own ability, and we could talk, I want to talk about that too, Tim, because part of that could be certain ways I'm training or whatever, right? But 100%, I will shoot the smaller cartridges better than the large cartridges, for sure. And I enjoy shooting them more, right? Which is probably that's probably the case with most people. There's just less recoil to deal with, right? So that's why I've been like, this is kind of nice shooting these. But when I watch this video, you talk a lot about shot angle. You talk about a lot of things rationally. You talk about, knowing exactly what those elk vitals are doing, when it's ethical, and when you would, just to accomplish the goal, take shots that nobody wants to talk about, but it's reality of elk hunting, all of that. So I know I gave you a big, long-winded beginning of this question, but what are your thoughts on it, man? Like, if you're going to justify to me, like, Cliff, you should no longer shoot that shit that you've been shooting the last year and a half. You should shoot the larger cartridges. How would you convince me?
Well, I wouldn't try to convince you unless I got into the types of shots you're willing to accept and limit yourself to. Because, there's no question that you can kill an elk with 6 or 270s if you're willing to limit yourself to standing broadside shots, where you can take your time and pick your shot. Those cartridges are plenty lethal on elk, assuming you've got a properly constructed bullet you're
Sure.
putting into those elk vitals. Where I would argue is during the time I learned all of that big cartridge stuff, I was trophy hunting. I was looking for exceptionally large record book antlered bulls. Well, those bulls don't act like young bulls. I mean, you take your average 2.5-year-old 5x5 bull elk, he is going to expose himself out in the open a lot more. And I found that Colorado elk expose themselves a lot more than these things in Idaho. You spook an elk in Idaho, he'll run into the next county before he stops. And Colorado and New Mexico, they're not really that bad. I think they're a little bit of a different subspecies of Rocky Mountain elk. That's just my opinion from having hunted them. But bottom line is, I was going into dark timber because that's where 10-year-old bulls live. And I knew that being in dark timber, chances were good they were going to hear me before I could get, 60 yards away and take the perfect broadside shot, or they were going to, the wind was going to swirl and they were going to smell me. So I started using cartridges that when they would run in dark timber, all I had to do is look at the direction they were running, find an opening 10 yards ahead of them or 20 yards ahead of them, put my crosshairs in that
Sure.
opening. And when they came into the opening, yank the trigger. I mean, you don't have a lot of time for controlling your trigger control and all that. And
Sure.
the first thing I would do when I'd see a big bull like that is I would look at his horns. Okay, you never see their whole rack in heavy timber, but
Yeah. Yeah.
if he looked big, okay, he's running. I'm going to swing, aim ahead. He's coming into that opening that I just put my crosshairs in, wham. And with 338 Win Mag, 340 Weatherby, 375s, the 375 improves. Another one I didn't show in that video that I've used is the 378 Weatherby. But when I hit them anywhere in the torso with those cartridges, they are done.
Yeah.
Be a butt right up the tutor, Texas heart shot. It can be, a quartering gut shot or even a broadside gut shot. Just depends on how they're running and the shot that it gives me. But if you tried that with a 7mm mag, the chances are very good you're never going to see that bull again. He's going to run off somewhere and die. And, that's something we all want to avoid, is wounding game. So it just depends on the shots you're willing to limit yourself to, which usually depends on the kind of elk you're hunting. Most people haven't gotten into elk hunting enough to understand that by the time a bull is 6, 7, 8 years old, his bones are twice as dense. They might be twice as thick on top of that. His hide might be 3 times thicker. His muscle groups are going to be more dense and bigger. And when you shoot a 10 or even, I've shot bulls that were in their late teens.
Mm-hmm.
They are so blocky and thick in the body. They're nothing like shooting your typical cow elk or your 5x5, 2.5-year-old bull elk. They don't think the same. They don't act the same, and their bodies aren't the same. And so you want to kill really big old bulls, you're going to have to go in close cover, most of the time. I mean, yeah, they do walk out in the open once in a while, but not during elk.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a total. I mean, I think I totally agree with you, Tim. There may be variation in different states and different topography or whatever, but even in most of the places I've hunted in Colorado, once a bull if they manage to survive the relentless hunting pressure in some of these places in the hunting season, they basically don't leave the timber unless they have to for some feed reason or something like that. But I think you're spot on that some of them. I mean, it's kind of amazing, riding in those wilderness areas and living near some of the like heavily hunted wilderness areas in Colorado. In the wintertime, I remember looking up, on these hillsides and being like, how did a 365-inch bull survive here? Like I've been hunting this place for 90 days straight, basically, and I never saw that bull. Well, he's on the south-facing slope because he has to be, because he's in, there's 10 feet of snow everywhere. So he's living there. Well, the way he's living there is he's literally staying in the trees 99% of the time. It comes out at night, basically. So your logic on the larger the larger cartridges is one of, I hear this all the time, right? Shot placement is the only thing that matters. It's like, well, I mean, not really, right? I mean,
Not
if you get big enough, not really.
I can shoot an elk with a 416 Remington in the guts, and he won't make it any more than 10 or 15 yards. I mean, it just shuts down his organs, it shuts down his nervous system. And I have found that, like, if I get down to the 338 Win Mag, like the two bullets I've used the most in the 338 and the 340, um, are either the 210 grain tipped triple shock, which in my 22-inch barreled 338s, I run at 2,900 feet a second. In my 22 and 23-inch barreled 340s, I run at just a little over 3,000 feet a second. That bullet and the 225 grain Nosler partition, I've just lost track of how many dozens of bulls I've killed with those two bullets. And you can shoot an elk in the guts when he's running away in timber, when he's, fleeing the scene, and he will not get away from you. He might make it. I mean, the most I've ever seen one run was maybe 100 yards when you're hitting them with full powered 338 ammo or full powered 340 Weatherby ammo. And if you want to go on up to 375 improved, it probably gets a little better. I haven't really noticed that it gets much better, but I've done that same thing with .6s, and you will lose elk doing it. I don't care how good your bullet is. Now, you'll collect some of those elk too, but
Sure.
you run a big risk of losing elk. And so you would not believe, the internet, the social media fallout we got on that when I first talked about it last summer. Oh, that's unethical. You can't shoot an elk up the butt. Really? You know where the bullet goes when you shoot them up the butt? It goes up into their chest. When they're running away and you don't have time for a precise placement, plus, I mean, they're moving really fast, and you shoot them back in the guts, quartering forward, guess where that bullet goes? If it's a stiff bullet, it goes up in their chest. If you kill an elk in 10 or 15 seconds from the time the bullet impacts him, why is that type of gut shot any less ethical than a double lung shot, which kills him in the same amount of time, and the bullet ends up basically up in the same place?
I totally agree that even us discussing this on this podcast, people are gonna shovel some shit at me about it. But I think it comes from the fact that people don't understand maybe the realities of hunting sometimes. Dude, we could talk about this subject forever because it really is interesting to me, and I love the fact that you've actually done it. You know what I mean? Like, you've actually done what you're talking about. Like,
That's how I learned it.
yeah. Well, I'll tell a very interesting story. Like the ass shot, and I don't mean like the butt cheek, I mean like the butthole shot absolutely works. I've seen it happen a bunch of times. I had a hunter do it on a mountain goat inadvertently one time. I'll tell the story real quick. You might find it funny, but it wasn't funny at the time at all. But I'd spotted this goat and he was on this really nasty rim, man. But I had been on those rims before. And when you looked at him, you'd think there's no way you could kill him there. But I had been in there, so I knew I could. Like there was a couple little paths. Have you mountain goat hunted before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you know the bullshit. Like, it's fun, but it's like when you're doing it, you're like, I'm never going to do this again kind of deal. But anyways, so I'm guiding this hunt and we're like, we're on paths like this big, Tim. Like, with our heavy packs and we're going along. And so, but I know I can get up there because I've been in the little maze up to this goat before. I kind of assess where he's at. I see where he's bedded. I'm like, we can kill that Billy for sure. We get up there and I misjudged it. I thought we were going to pop out because we got above him, like on the rim above him. I thought we were going to pop out and he's going to be about 150 yards down the rim. But when I popped out, he was like 6 feet away. I vividly remember the wind was hitting him and he was beautiful. You know how majestic they are. Like, he was looking into the wind and he was right there and I could see his hair like waving in the, like, and he was just looking. And he probably, because it was so windy and stuff, he didn't really notice we were there fully. But I popped out, looked, and then I popped right back, and I was like, oh, he's right here. And the hunter's like, oh shit. But by then the goat he sensed something, and he stood up and he started walking away from us, straight away from us. And I had the hunter come out, and the hunter asks me, he goes, "Should I shoot him?" And I said, "Yeah, go ahead and shoot him." I didn't mean right then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
meant like wait for an opportunity, and
Yeah.
boom, he shot him right in the tutor shot that you mentioned. And that goat died so fast, and goats generally don't die real fast, but he died so fast, he tipped over dead, and he fell into the crags. And if you've goat hunted much, just typical thing, it happens. And he fell off that rim, and I thought to myself, thank God I don't have to pack him over these little things that are going to kill me, these little ledges that we got up here on. I'll go down the rim and he'll be down below. Unfortunately, the sad part of the story is it turned out where he fell was on this 200 foot like sheer face, and he's stuck in a crack in the middle. And it was for 3 days we tried to recover that goat. Like, I had mountain climber guys that just they were even it was outside of like a very well-known area in Colorado with a huge climbing community. And I brought like the biggest freaking pros there are. And they're like, there's no way, dude. Anyway, so that's the sad part, but I know it works because it killed it so fast. It caused me a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that bullet ended up in that goat's chest cavity, which is where that bullet would have ended up if you'd have taken a broadside shot. There's a gap. And I know, people that have hunted a lot and butchered, field dressed a lot of animals know this, but you've got the spine up here when an animal's standing on all fours, and you got the guts hanging down here. You've got a void in the middle. So spine, guts. And that void happens to be where the poop chute comes out under their tail. And you shoot them right up the poop chute, and that bullet travels above the guts, below the spine, and goes right up into their chest and just kills the crap out of them.
Sure.
I mean,
yeah, it's a reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one question I have on this is that, let's say that I think it's perfectly, like, your rationale makes so much sense to me, Tim. Like, okay, this is a very good argument for a guy like me who enjoys shooting smaller. Like, if I'm going to go and shoot cow elk in a hayfield or something, I'm probably still going to shoot like a small cartridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I just enjoy shooting them. It's just like a personal preference thing. I don't know your thoughts on that, but I just like shooting them, whatever. And so I'm going to wait for
coyotes.
What's that?
They're fine for coyotes.
Yeah, I got you.
Overreach quote. He was making fun of what's his face, Jack
O'Connor.
Jack O'Connor, because Jack O'Connor was always using 270s to go hunt elk and to go hunt sheep and goats. And Elmer Keith was like, well, this is a quote, it's a damn fine coyote cartridge.
I like it. I mean, it kind of applies to the situation I'm talking about. I'm going to kill a cow out here. I'm going to get a good angle on her, going to go through some ribs and the, the diaphragm and kill it, right? So I'll shoot whatever you want, right? Now, I'm going to go on a hunt that you're talking about where I'm going to, and I love these hunts. Like, I love the story you told before, tracking bulls in the snow. I love doing it on horseback, and then watching their tracks, knowing like, okay, he's going to bed, tie my horses up and start walking this track out. Super fun, right? Great way to kill big bulls. Now, if I'm going to go on that hunt, and I'm going to be realistic about it, I'm going to take an ethical shot, but it may not be the textbook shot that everybody out there who watching this is hearing about. It might be more like the shots we're talking about. Now, if I'm not going to shoot a small cartridge, is the logic don't stop at the 7 mag or the 300 Win Mag or the 30-06? Why not just go to the biggest that I can tolerate?
Well, that's what I do. And
okay.
And, I mean, for recoil, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've hunted elk in so many different states, and for a lot of years I did that every year. But there's a lot of times I've used a 270 or a 30-06. I mean, it's pretty hard to go wrong with a 30-06, for general elk hunting.
Sure.
And even more so hard to go wrong with a 300 Win Mag. However, if I know exactly where I'm going to be hunting, and I know how the elk move in those areas, and I'm trophy hunting looking for a big bull. And by the way, elk you trophy hunt, the meat gets eaten. So everybody just chill. Good grief. Trophy hunting, that's it. No, it's not. It's a way to take the biggest and baddest and smartest of a species and pit your advanced skills above their advanced skills of survival. It's a contest against yourself and the animal, which is why I've only got 2 record book elk in this house mounted, and I've killed several. I usually give the horns away, but it's the hunting I like. I
Sure.
really enjoy the skill set required to do that. But so I just know that I'll take a 338 or a 340 or a 375 because I can go into dark timber, kill an elk at a bad angle when he's running, when I can't pick my shot, and I can do that. And if I walk all the way through that timbered high mountain basin and get to the edge of it, and I'm looking out over a canyon where I've got 500, 600 yard shots, mile shots, which I won't take, obviously. I'll hike
Sure.
around and get in position. But that same cartridge is just as capable of making the 500-yard shot as a 7 mag or a 300 Winchester or a 30-06 is. And 30-06s are fine for 500-yard shots if you know your trajectories and you know your range, you know your distance. But I want to hunt in the timber, close up, be able to take any reasonable shot at a running elk. And then later in the day, if I'm still hunting, walk out to the edge of the canyon and shoot something at 500 yards. And I've done that so many times,
Yeah, that makes sense, Tim. So, a follow-on question I have. Well, I'll ask you this: Do you feel like you shoot in your bolt rifles? Let's just say for context here. Do you think that you personally shoot your 30-06 better? What? I'm sorry. What's one of the common bigger bore rifles that you shoot that you just mentioned?
338 and 340 Weatherby.
So let's take your 340 Weatherby. Do you shoot your 30-06 with the same accuracy and precision as the Weatherby?
Yes, but that's because of desire. In other words, I was willing to overlook the added recoil at a young age to get the perfect cartridge for the way I hunt. So I programmed my head to say, okay, I'm going to shoot more and more and more of these 340 Weatherby rounds until the recoil isn't even in the equation. And that was because of my desire. And some of that might have to do with your entire neuro system too. I mean, I do think that everybody's built a little different and their mental perceptions are different and their neurological system is
Sure.
way different. And
Oh
some
yeah.
people, I've punched people in the shoulder joking around and had them go to crying, and
Yeah.
I feel really bad. Well, you can hit me in the shoulder with a sledgehammer. Yeah, it's going to hurt, but I'll be over it in a couple of days, and I think that neurological systems vary a lot. So for
Oh, I
me,
mean, and also just body. I mean, I think body size plays in to recoil at the simplest form to some extent, Tim.
everybody's an individual, whether it's their
Sure.
size, their muscle structure, their neurological makeup, and their desire. And for me, I always wanted the biggest, baddest cartridge I could for killing elk with bad shots in heavy timber. And then I also wanted the ability to step out on the edge of those pole thickets and those deep timbered pockets and shoot across a canyon. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally follow, and I think that, and I'm not like I hopefully the context I started with, I don't, I'm not sold either way. There, I for sure have drifted a certain way. I'd probably just personal enjoyment and that sort of thing. But it does hit me every once in a while. I'm like, you know what? If you just think about the physics of all of this, and there's all these different nuances about bullet construction, we can talk about the availability of certain bullets and certain calibers. We could totally go down that. But if you think about it, all just the physics and the facts, you're going to be more effective at killing things, all else held equal, if you're shooting a more powerful, larger diameter projectile.
yeah,
That's a fact because it's going to cause more damage.
there's
So,
no getting around that. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I think that's just a fact. So then the question is, okay, at what level of training, or like you say, person to person, is there this trade-off of my capabilities versus, versus what, what I can really shoot? And this just it's more of something that interests me, Tim, because it's like somewhere it's something that I'm like kind of digging into, trying to figure out, really from doing it, what works the best. And I think on the big cartridges, dude, I might have to come out to your place in Africa someday, and like I might have to gear up a big gun just for that, just to like to do it with the guy. You know what I mean? And do a little bit of testing on that side of things.
Well, one thing that you mentioned that's not a stagnant number, and that is your ability. You
Right.
know, I mean, if people want to practice and people want to make the investment in time and effort and money, because ammo's not cheap, um, your ability doesn't have to stay stagnant. You can get better and better and better at handling recoil until maybe for some people it's not even an issue. I can tell you when I shoot stuff with a 375 H&H, I don't even notice the recoil.
Right.
But that's because I've shot 375s a lot and 338s a lot. They kick about the same in the same weight rifle if it fits your body right. 340 Weatherby and a 375 improved, there's not a lot of difference in the free recoil, or in my mind, than the felt recoil.
And I've heard you mention this in a couple of videos, and this is the last question I'm going to have on this topic, and then we're gonna talk about wolves. Sound good, dude? assuming you got assuming you got a little more time. The last question I will ask is: you mentioned stock fit, stock design, those sort of things. With the big heavy recoiling cartridges, it like huge factor, minimal factor. What are your thoughts on it, Tim?
Huge factor.
Okay.
I mean, I don't like getting beat up. Um, in stock fit, there's free recoil, which is the mathematical formula of this bullet at this weight going this fast. And my rifle offsets the recoil because it weighs 8.5 pounds. That's mathematical free recoil. Felt recoil is how it all works out for you and your nervous system and your body. And a huge part of that is how that stock fits you. I mean, I've heard guys complain, oh, that .6 kicked like a damn mule. It was the worst kicking cartridge I've ever fired. And I'm like, huh, because the .6 generates relatively low free recoil. So how can it be kicking you so bad? Oh, the stock doesn't fit you or the darn. You're beating yourself up with felt recoil because you don't understand the dynamics of getting a stock to fit your body.
Man, and I say we're going to jump to wolves, but I have to say this because I think it's going to complete the topic here. When you talk about your shot placement with these large cartridges, Tim, or just elk in general, one thing you do, and I just want to point it out because I give it to you as a giant positive, and it's something that I try to explain to people. You think about these elk in 3D, like the way you describe the angles. Do you
Yeah.
mind? Do you mind like explaining that? I know you've kind of alluded to it, but can you mind explaining that to the audience? Because I think it's a giant thing when it comes to killing elk, regardless of what you're shooting it with.
Yeah. And this is something that I've gone over with and over with and over with my wife on. But when the moment of truth comes and she's going to pull the trigger, she's not looking at the angle as to where that bullet is going to exit or where that bullet is going to go terminally through the animal's body. She's just looking at where she hits it. Well, if it's angled wrong, um, let's say you hit it in the front lung, but it's angled quartering facing toward you. Well, that bullet's just going to hit one lung, go into the guts. And
Right.
unless you're shooting a massive cartridge, that animal's going to run. And I can't tell you how many African animals that we have a lot of culling that we do in Africa. So we might shoot several hundred animals a year, which is great experimentation for bullet designs and stuff. But I can't tell you how many of her animals, she's like, well, I shot it right in the lung. I said, yeah, but he was quartering toward us, or he was quartering this way, or whatever. Well, then you've got to track those animals. And, and I always look at where the bullet would exit if the bullet's going to exit. That's what I'm shooting for. I'm not shooting for where I hit the elk or the animal on the near side. I'm looking at where that bullet is going to travel terminally and exit, if it
Yeah.
exits. That's always what I'm looking for.
No, I think you nailed it, man. I feel like with clients, what I've dealt with, Tim, a lot is that they're fixated on the entry, and they don't want the entry to be in a spot that they view as subpar. But in a lot of these situations, it has to be subpar to actually kill the animal most effectively. Like your example of a quartering away elk, your entry is going to be in the guts.
Yeah.
It has to be. And so if people can't, they don't want to do that.
That's just lack of experience. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you, I got really beat up on social media when I said those things and made a video of it. And all the people, I mean, the people that were being critical, if I could sit down with how many elk you killed, well, I killed me a 5x5 once. Okay. I mean, when you've done a bunch of it, and especially if you're a trophy hunter wanting those extra big bulls that are extra smart and extra hard to kill, and if you learn that the way I did, you're going to find out that you're going to get limited opportunities, and you better be able to take whatever shot that bull elk gives you if you're a serious trophy hunter. If not, fine, use a 30-06, use a 270, and limit yourself to shots that are lethal with those cartridges.
Tim, are you okay on time, man? I just want to be respectful of your time, Tim. I mean,
hurry up, would you? Oh, sorry.
I'm having a blast. So hopefully you're having 1/3 of the fun I'm having, dude.
I'll talk as long as you want to talk, especially if we get into how illegal and authoritarian and how wrong the entire Forest Service, it shouldn't even exist. First of all, and then the DEI idiots they hire that have never read the Constitution and want to take your rights away. When you get into that, I mean, you'll have a hard time shutting me up.
I've got wolves and then land management and the Forest Service next. Sound like a plan, dude?
Yeah, sounds like one big pile of shit. Those three topics are all kissing cousins, and they're all turds.
I love it, dude.
Thank you, babe. I have the world's best wife. Have I ever told you what a great wife I have?
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. I am envious. I think I said maybe I just sent it to Kim. Did you get the email that I sent you that has the picture of my wife with her desert ram?
I think I did. Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of a crazy story. She killed this desert ram, and it ended up being like a 10-day hunt. And we ended up running out of days, so we had to bring the kids with us on the with the which was kind of cool. We had like the 2-year-old with I think my boy was 2.5 or something in the shot or whatever, but she got it done. But I was just gonna say, Tim, like it's kind of motivating that you and your wife work on it together. I wish me and my wife, I mean, we're kind of like at a different stage with the kids and stuff, but I look forward to her being able to.
When you've got little kids at home, you're kind of hosed on hunting.
Yeah.
With your wife.
Yeah. But I'm kind of looking forward to like a time when some of that, mitigates a little bit and that sort of thing. So.
Well,
but
I take my wife around mostly for the ironing and vacuuming. But we get out and hunt once in a while, and then I use her to pack animals out and stuff.
Make her carry.
Yeah, she's got to earn her keep. I mean,
dude, at least hopefully you buy her like a sled or something that she can pull with the meat.
No, I just keep promising her, new ironing boards and all the good stuff. That keeps her motivated.
All right, man. Are you ready? We'll get back into it here.
Oh, I thought we were Hey, I want that part in the
Okay,
video.
we'll leave it.
I specifically request.
All
You
right,
know,
sounds good.
the male chauvinistic attitude,
No,
especially when
that's
people tell I'm joking.
we'll keep it in there. But I want to get to Wolves, the Selway, and the Frank Church, and I want the viewers to have context on this because nowadays everybody's talking about the Wolves in Colorado and how shitty everything has turned out and how everything's imploding and
And
everybody and now everybody is what's funny to me a little bit is there's a lot of people who I feel like I was pretty early to being open about this. I was outfitting at the time and all this shit came down the pipe in Colorado, but I was 20 years behind you. You're like one of the original guys sounding the alarm on the wolf thing. And I want people to understand that context because it's a whole lot easier to be vocal about it now than I think it was back then. So I want to talk about that, man. I want to hear, you know, I want to hear your original thoughts on the wolf thing, like the dates when you were on it, what how. I mean, you were pretty vocally negative about it early on. So go ahead, Tim.
so, certain people are visionaries about certain things. People like Christopher Columbus or maybe Tesla. And being an outdoor guy and being able to look at what's happening and know the future to me is just obvious. It's just like, duh. But when you figure most of our American population are not really that much. I mean, they might like the outdoors, they might like to go hunting and stuff, but they weren't living it like I was. And I knew that if you didn't control wolf numbers, they would wipe out everything. And I mean, I have watched them kill entire herds of bighorn sheep, entire groups of sheep. I mean,
Yeah.
30, 40 sheep gone in a summer because there's a pack of wolves coming in and preying on them. Um, I over by Goosewing, Montana, you could only get in there in the winter by snowmobile. We went, and it's a long snowmobile ride. Went in there one winter. There was over 200 dead elk laying there, all killed by wolves, and very few of them eaten. The wolves would get them in that deep snow and would run them. And the wolves can run on top of that with those big padded feet. It's like wearing snowshoes. Will the elk go crashing through that stuff, especially if it has thawed and refrozen and there's a crust on it? And the elk get fatigued right away, and the wolves just kill them. I mean, they're
Right.
a pack of dogs. They just kill stuff. It's fun,
Yeah,
and
sure.
the scientific term for that is surplus reflex killing. How about we just wise up and call it sport killing? I mean, do I have to use your scientific terms that you invented to sound politically correct? No. The freaking wolves kill whatever they can whenever they can. And if they get going in a pack, they do it 10 times more.
Sure.
I watched our elk numbers over here in Unit 28, which is 40 miles west of where I'm sitting right now. I'm outside Tendoy, out of Idaho. Unit 28. I used to just drive around with people that weren't healthy enough to do the hard climbing. I would drive the old logging roads over there and glass across the canyons. And in the middle of elk season, I could get anybody that could shoot. I could get them a 6x6 bull in the middle of elk season. That's how many elk there were. You can't find an elk track over there now. And I'm not exaggerating. You can drive those logging roads in the snow and not find one elk track in several days of driving. And that's
Yeah.
what putting these wolves in here that hadn't been in here since the 1920s. That's what they did. And my take on it before they did it and my take today hasn't changed at all. It was a way to reduce hunting numbers, reduce the rugged individual American to not be able to get food in the woods, make them more dependent on the system as opposed to independent of the system by eliminating the game. You eliminate the game numbers, people can't just go out and kill elk whenever they want.
Sure.
Not only that, a lot of people just won't get into hunting. It's not fun. They don't see an elk all season long, so they don't get into it. That eliminates a lot of new gun purchases, a lot of gun ownership without ever attacking the Second Amendment. All they had to do was make up a farce name like the Endangered Species Act. I mean, which one of us don't want to preserve species? We all do. So
Right.
government makes up a name that we're dumb enough to buy into. This is for the endangered species. This will make all of nature stronger. The wolves only kill the sick and the weak. Well, guess what the weakest is? It's newborn calves. And next to that is mothers that are ready to birth. They're weak.
Sure.
That's what the elk prey on. Most of the elk predation, if you're talking dry ground where elk can run and escape, as opposed to, deep snow where they're all captive. I mean,
Right.
most of the elk predation by wolves is the calves, the babies.
Sure.
That's most of what they kill. And secondly would be pregnant cows or cows with calves that have been delivered. That's your weakest elk, and that's what they kill. That's why over in Gardner, Montana, where I used to go check out the elk in the winter all the time, they had 30,000 elk, and they had massive hunts. They no longer have any hunts over there, so you can't say the hunting pressure did this. Gardner borders Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
There's just an overabundance of wolves. That herd now is about 3,000. It went from 30,000 to 3,000. And when it was 30,000, they had heavy hunting pressure because they had to control the elk numbers, which is a win-win. You get to go out and recreate, you get to go out and hunt, you get really healthy meat. The state gets proceeds from the sale of licenses and tags. That's all gone over there because they introduced wolves. And there's no more human hunting, no more revenue for the state, no more good father and son time outdoors. And there's wolves everywhere, and nobody's going to eat a wolf. And not only that, you don't get shots at wolves. Once a pack of wolves has been shot at, they turn nocturnal, they turn very sneaky. I mean, this was a planned, it was part of a plan in a way to reduce Americans' independence and American gun ownership. Mark my word, it was. And that's what the Endangered Species Act has been used for wrongfully. I mean, I'm sorry, Cliff, you can't have a removed central government doing things because they'll want more and more power. They'll grow more and more agencies. They'll have more and more laws made. All of it will infringe on your freedoms. It has to be left to state management where there's some accountability to your state residents, and you can't just sit in DC 3,000 miles away and polish a bureaucratic chair with your bureaucratic ass.
Yeah, no, I think this is like, it's a very simple concept. Like the way you describe it, it should be very simple to people, and it's rational, right? Basically, in all these places, we had hunting opportunity because we were managing these ungulate populations, so there was a surplus for hunters to shoot. And contrary to what people think, that was not like something that was developed in the 50s. It's been around for like when the West was settled. This was an issue that was just, it's never going to go back to pre-humans, so we can chalk that off. Since then, we've been managing game so people can hunt it. That's not a bad thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that that's like the whole point. And so when we brought in wolves, they're obviously going to consume a bunch of that, and it's going to affect the hunting opportunity. That's pretty obvious. And so that all makes a ton of sense. But it gets complicated when you realize that, when you really think about how it was allowed to happen, right? Because you point out something with the bighorn sheep, and just for the viewers' context, I've seen the same thing with other predators too. I mean, you can have, if it's 40 bighorn sheep and a little small kind of what I call micro population, that population of bighorns is worth like millions and millions of dollars. Like in the state, the
Mhm.
state agency has
Yep.
managed and probably spent at least hundreds of thousands of dollars getting that population to where it's at. So how is it that it's been allowed for essentially in the beginning? My understanding was a federal, it's really a federal thing. How was it allowed that the feds took that away from the states that own that wildlife in trust for for its residents? Like, how did it happen?
I'll tell you with the way it actually happened, because I was following this when it happened. First of all, Congress went to, or not Congress, but U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that administers the Endangered Species Act. They went to Congress and they said, we want funding to reintroduce wolves. And in order to request that, you have to have an EIS, which is an environmental impact statement. And so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service went to Congress and said, Central Idaho has roughly 200,000 ungulates, and the wolves will disperse along the mountain ridges, which is they knew was a lie. Ed Bangs was the coordinator on this, and he dealt with wolves for 10, 15 years in Alaska. He knew he was lying. Lying to Congress is an entire industry in this
For
country.
sure.
And so they said, Congress came back and said, no, we won't fund that because 200,000 ungulates isn't enough to support a burgeoning wolf population. And of course, they were full of the usual lies. Wolves only eat the sick and the weak.
Sure.
Wolves, only the alpha male breeds only the alpha female. Geez, I can go over to my neighbor's house and his dog will hump my leg. And,
Yeah.
and these guys are going, oh, yeah, only the alpha male breeds only the alpha female. What a crock.
Yeah, it's
And
just completely made up.
all bullshit. So Congress says, no, we're not going to fund this. So then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I used to have copies of all this, U.S. Forest Service or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service goes back to Congress with an EIS that says there's 600,000 ungulates in central Idaho. And Congress still wouldn't fund it. So you know what U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did? They just went illegally, took the money right out of the Pittman Robertson Tax Fund, which is supposed to be for outdoor use to propagate the existence of species, of wildlife, of any species, and for the use of hunting, which is how it was originally designed. They just went and stole the millions and millions and millions out of that. And then they broke another law because the species of wolves that were here in the Rockies were called the Rocky Mountain wolf. They were a subspecies of the Canadian gray wolf. And it's illegal under the Endangered Species Act to bring a non-native species in and reintroduce it. Well, they wanted to do this. This is how they get funding. There's so much money and so much power in this that they went up to Canada, and the Canadians thought we were idiots, and they were right.
Sure.
And paid the Canadians to help trap all these wolves. Oh, Ed Bangs was involved in all that. Ed Bangs needs to be prosecuted. These people knew what they were doing. They knew
Yeah.
what they were doing. They also knew that wolves carried several really bad, what's the word I'm looking for? Parasites that are actually deadly to humans. And we have had humans in Idaho now die from it because the elk get it and the moose get it. And then if you have an open cut on your finger and you're gutting an elk or a moose, you'll get the parasite too. And in humans, it especially grows in the brain. It causes a brain tumor or lung tumors. And they knew that too. Ed Bangs knew all this. They brought these wolves in anyway because it completed their political agenda of limiting gun ownership and making humans more dependent on government than independent types like me that can go shoot a deer or elk if they're hungry. And I mean, our government And I'm just talking about U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service here. They administer the Endangered Species Act. Our government has been at war with their own citizens out of a battle of having control and dominating their citizens for decades and decades and decades. And that little wolf reintroduction was just one manifestation of that. I could point out endless amounts of others, Forest Service being one of them.
Sure, and we can. I want to dive into the Forest Service deal, but let's parse this a little bit, because I think a lot of people, even amongst my audience, are going to be like, Tim, you're kind of going off the rails here a little bit, but
I'm exactly on the rails.
yeah. So, but I think there's like elements of these that we should discuss, man. So one that constantly I haven't ever commented on or anything. It just hasn't been something, it hasn't come up. But this Canadian wolf versus the wolf that was in the US, this will come up a lot. I'll see it in comments and stuff. Anytime I have a wolf person on, they will bring this on. I had a good buddy of mine. His name's Greg Jones. He was dealt with convict wolves for most of his adult life. I think he's killed over 200 of them. And so he's got like a good, he sees the conflicts, right? And he talked about this dynamic a little bit too. And it's funny because a lot of people will say, "Oh no, scientifically it's the exact same. It's the exact same wolf. A gray wolf's a gray wolf." And I'll admit, Tim, like I actually bought this for a period of time. I bought it. I was like, I'm not. It's not my. I'm not educated as somebody like a wolf biologist or whatever. I'm going to assume that that's true. And then the anecdote that I would tell somebody, I had a buddy who imported some bull elk from Alberta, and I went to the place, and when I saw those Rocky Mountain bull elk, I was like, those are not Rocky Mountain bull elk. Their
Correct.
body is literally 40 to 50% bigger than the Rocky Mountain elk that I know about, right? So in my mind, I want to hear your thoughts on the species differentiation. But in my mind, it immediately clicked for me. I don't really give a shit if they're technically the same species. They ain't the same thing. You know what I mean? So anyways, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, because we will get comments on this that say, "Oh, you guys are full of shit. Same exact wolf."
Okay, so let me tell you what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did. They're very aware that under the Endangered Species Act, which is the law they use to reintroduce animals, or in this case, dump animals on you, they were very aware that you were not allowed to bring in a different subspecies of wolf. They knew that. It's illegal as hell. So
Yeah.
what did they do? A couple of years before they actually brought the wolves in, they looked at all the subspecies of wolves and they just flat out eliminated the ones that got in the way of their agenda. The Rocky Mountain wolf is the wolf that was here. And I've had plenty of experience with them because of my age and because I was always in the Frank Church, River of No Return, or the Selway. I had a lot of experience with those wolves. The Rocky Mountain wolf never ran in big packs. They were on average a big male, a really good sized male would be 80 pounds. The Canadian gray, a really good sized male, is 140 or 150 pounds. I'm talking fully mature,
big difference. Yeah.
And these Canadian grays run in packs and hunting packs. I have encountered Rocky Mountain wolves before. They were like a big coyote. They had more of a wolf look to their face, but they were more like just a coyote that was twice the size a coyote should be, I never saw them in huge packs. But U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and this is why you cannot have a centralized government. They will want to take control of certain things. They're just like a cancer. Cancer is cells that replicate they just replicate automatically.
Sure.
That's your government.
Yeah, it doesn't shrink unless there's intervention.
Well, and there's no accountability, no matter how
Right.
bad they screw things up. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service actually eliminated the Rocky Mountain wolf, used to be a legitimate subspecies, and said, no, that no longer exists. They took it off the list of subspecies of wolves. Just now it doesn't exist. We took it off the list. Now we're free to bring Canadian greys into this country and wreak havoc and further our agenda. And I'm not off the rails. The weird thing about me is I knew this before they did any of it.
Sure.
And it's like it's so obvious, but I'm the Christopher Columbus of wildlife and government in my day that he was in the 1400s.
Yeah, and it's funny because this stuff, like, there's more and more people seeing, I guess, the truth of this stuff. An example that is kind of hilarious. I don't know if you saw it, Tim, but Colorado, I believe it was because of the Mexican wolf subspecies. One of their collared wolves went to the south. They went to New Mexico, caught it, and brought it back to Colorado because they were concerned that it's going to now interfere with the Mexican subspecies, which I think is not a concern. It's a concern because they know, because the Endangered Species Act is going to cause them problems.
Half the wolves around here are part domestic dog by this point. There's no way these wolves that it's not illegal to just wipe them out, because they're not even a purebred Canadian gray anymore. They're full of domestic dog genetics.
Sure. Well, man, it's crazy. I've heard you say this before, and you kind of alluded to it in our discussion here so far. It's crazy to me that it's not illegal for federal but also state politicians to just blatantly lie about this stuff. It's stunning to me. In a stark example, I mean, people listening to this could argue with me or Tim about the validity of these, whatever, until they're blue in the face. But it is a fact that in Colorado, in the last year and a half, Tim, they have transplanted wolves there that they know have been livestock conflict wolves in other places. Can you fucking imagine that? Like,
it's the war on agriculture. I mean, let's face it, these tree hugger illegal agencies that are unconstitutional, like U.S. Fish and Wildlife, like Forest Service, they want to control you. And in so doing, they want to control the food chain. And so now you can bring in another one, the FDA and the environment, the EPA. They come in and make all these rules against farmers. And so now Farmer Joe has to spend twice as much money making sure that rainwater from one of his calving pens doesn't run down in the creek that's a mile and a half away. And they make it expensive to put people out of business. Why? Because they want control, and they want to control this populace. And if there's ever an uprising in America and you can't feed the people, guess how you control them?
sure.
Hey, I'm with the federal government. I'm with FEMA. There's another one. I got some food over here.
Sure.
So all you got to do is keep doing what we tell you to do. We'll feed you. See?
Yeah.
And everybody loses their independence. Everybody loses their own thought processes. Everybody basically loses their freedom. And this is part of a nationwide agenda that's been going on at least since the early 1900s. Now they've got the last two generations, yours being one of them, they've got it to the point where people are used to all this. People are used to being controlled. I bought my first car, my first several cars. They didn't have buzzers and dingers and beepers when I'd get out of the car and leave my lights on or leave my key in the ignition. My doors didn't automatically lock. And people go, well, those are all good things. It's like, how about we learn to use our brain? That's a good thing, because the current generations are further and further away from any accountability of their own thought processes. And so you guys are used to this. I'm not. I'm old.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, as it relates to this wolf thing, I feel like I'm in transition, because some of the stuff, like the issue that I just mentioned, Tim, like the idea of, like, okay, this transplanting wolves that they already know how to kill livestock. Like, it seems so blatant. It's like it seems almost like a bad it there it's hard for me to compute this, man, because it's like I see what Tim's saying. His explanation seems to be more and more of a truth because I can't find another logical explanation. But then when I hear things like this, it's like, well, are they so bold that they think that they can get away with that kind of behavior? Is that
Yes.
what it is?
Yes. I
It,
don't have
it,
to think about that for even half a second.
yeah,
I mean, you think that's bad, what you just talked about, bringing in wolves that have already been conditioned to prey on farmers' livestock. How about this one? How about bringing wolves in here with a highly, highly contagious disease that they know spreads to humans, that causes brain tumors and lung tumors, and they've got it all over Idaho now. I have several friends that have shot deer and elk, and they find these tumors in their livers, in their hearts, in their brains. And Idaho Fish and Game knows this. And they just, government agencies do their very best to keep stuff like this quiet. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. My wife's back there. She goes, COVID. I mean, um, yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of that parasite.
yeah. I know what you're talking about, and I've had other people bring it up to me. And it's funny, Tim, because it's kind of like the same deal. And I need to I'll look it up or something. I can put it in the notes, but I should try to find somebody down that has some experience with it on the I guess the disease side of things and is familiar with it, because it's kind of a wild deal. I had a guy tell me, I'm walking down the trail in the Selway or somewhere like that, and I see a dry hunk of wolf shit. I'll take my boot. I'll take my boot and just push it just to see what it's been eaten. I do that on almost every wolf shit I see. And a guy told me that, who I respect, I believe it was actually Greg who I interviewed. He's like, don't do that, because that's how you can get that shit. Because it actually, even in old crap. And I apologize to the viewership. I don't have any scientific sources for this, at least right now, guys. So I'm just telling you what I've been told.
Well, you will find those sources when you
Yeah,
look.
okay.
You
Yeah,
will.
yeah. But my understanding is that it's, even if it's dry, it'll actually, when it gets, when it's dry like that, it's actually some of the most risky, because you can actually inhale it.
Oh, it's worse than that. It's worse than inhaling it. I mean, it's the parasite eggs that are dormant in the dry wolf poop. Okay.
Okay.
And so the dry wolf poop, it turns white. Any
Hmm.
canine poop that stays on the ground and in the sun for more than 3 or 4 months turns white. Well, you
Almost
know
looks
how,
like it calcifies. Yeah.
yeah, well, and a lot of that it's part of what they're eating. They're eating a lot of bones. Um, so what happens? You kick it with your boot, and that dust, they're dusty when they're dry like that,
Sure.
gets on your shoe, and it's full of those parasite eggs. It's worse than breathing it. You go home, take your shoes off, set them in the corner of your family room, and your 2-year-old toddler goes over
Sure.
there. They've always got their hands in their mouth. They've always got their hands all over the floor, goes over there and grabs your boot and, hey, daddy, I mean, you're raising little kids. You know how they are. They grab
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
everything, and everything is in their mouth. Do you understand the risk involved there? I mean, it is enormous. And they brought those wolves in knowing this. This is
Sure.
not new information. They've had
Yeah.
mass wildlife die-offs up in Canada from this parasite that the wolves spread. They knew this 50 years ago in Canada.
Huh. It's an interesting. I got to get somebody on. I'd love to like talk to them about like the depths of it, man. Because I believe you. I mean, I've heard about it enough now, Tim, that I believe that it is absolutely a thing. It's a thing for sure. It's
Oh,
not like people are making it up. I
no,
would
there's
love to just hear the full history of it.
I'm telling you, your government is corrupt. You cannot have a central government sitting in DC telling you in Idaho or you in Colorado what you can and can't do. And here's what we are going to force on you. And we'll twist the rules to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I'm with you. And here, this will be the last big topic we'll talk about. Let's talk about the Forest Service. Let's talk about public land management. Some context here. I'm not going to speak for you, Tim, but I am very much. I mean, I made my living on public land. I love public land. I like wild places. I love wilderness areas. All the what do you call it? The disclaimer. I'm a public land guy. You know what I mean? Like, I love hunting in all different ways. I've hunted beautiful private ranches. I love that too. But for me, man, like hunting elk horseback in a wilderness area, it's very hard for me to beat that. I would never want that to go away. Now, having said that, I mean, I think I asked you this in a private conversation because you've had the interaction with public land managers that we're going to talk about. Why is it that every person in my entire time on this planet, every person who's actually dealt with these land managers in a substantial way is damn near radicalized? And I say that in almost a sad way.
Against them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean it. I don't mean it in like the definition of radicalized in a bad way and like a threat to, our country or something like that. I just mean that's like the best way for me to describe it. Most people are, I mean, not most, every single one who I have dealt with, who's dealt with them in a substantial sense, is like they're almost obsessed with the like letting other people know how fucked up it is. Is that a better way to explain it?
You're just being 100% truthful and accurate. I mean, I can tell you what it is. You called it, those agencies involved in land management. It's not. It's social engineering. They're not involved in land management. 70, 80 years ago, the Forest Service used to manage logging contracts. The stuff for wood, the stuff that people build houses out of and stuff.
Sure.
And they managed it as a renewable resource. It's like planting corn. Well, okay, a tree takes 40, 50 years to get harvestable, but you log it off, you manage it, you replant, and then you go and clear cut another area, replant, you go clear cut another area, replant. It keeps your forests from ever getting old and ever getting sick and all these bark beetles taking over and killing everything. And then you have these massive forest fires. That's all been caused by the lack of management. And it's all, again, they don't want people independent. They want people dependent. And for example, being as old as I am, I remember everybody used to go out in the woods and cut firewood for the winter here in the Rockies. That was just something everybody did. Take their chainsaw in their truck. They'd go cut, 8, 10 cord of wood, from dead trees, and then that would be how they'd heat their house all winter. Well, the Forest Service came out about, I don't know. I mean, I always mess up on this, 35 or 40 years ago. And they said, well, we're going to start requiring fire cutting permits because they've always got a reason. There's too much erosion on some of these old Forest Service roads, as if getting a permit's going to change the erosion.
Sure.
But don't worry about it. They're free. We're not going to charge anybody. You just have to come get the permit, and you have to tag each load of wood with your permit to show that you came to us and got the permit. Well, you know how much it is a load now? Now it's $20 a load.
Yeah.
For your firewood permit per load. Well,
sure.
And they do that with everything they do. No, don't worry about it. It's free. We're not going to charge. And they know we're morons. They know we have short memories. They know we're not paying attention. And the plan all along is to charge money for it and make it eventually so expensive or so paperwork heavy that people just don't want to do it anymore.
And I think the dynamic you're talking about gets to my original question a little bit. Like, and that's why your loggers, your resource guys, your outfitters, people who just hunt a lot of times, who have repetitive um, dealings with them, get frustrated because I think they see what you're talking about. They see it for what it is because they actually are the few people that actually deal with seeing it temporarily, right? Like they see it change. And I think that's maybe where the frustration or why there's so many people that are like, what are you guys talking about? It's kind of like when the Doge thing came through. It was like I think I
I love
posted
Doge.
I think I posted one time about it, Tim, and it just kind of like in a comical way may have reposted something. So one of my outfitting buddies reposted something about the Forest Service talking about their trail crews, and every wilderness outfitter like thinks it's a parody, right? It's like, what trail crews are you talking about? There
They
is
don't clear
like
they don't clear trails
yeah,
anymore.
yeah, like it's so I'm just like from an outfitter's perspective, like all the wilderness folks are like, dude, we've been clearing our own trails for 30 years. Every guy that's got 3 meals and goes elk hunting, 15 days a year with his stock knows that he's clearing his own trail. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't this idea of so anyways, it's just kind of like literally it was like a parody when you saw like the people putting out things about how horrible it was that the wilderness would not get trails taken care of. It's like, what universe is everybody talking about? Anyways, so I reposted that and I got a tremendous amount of hate, Tim. Like, like, hey, you're attacking public land management. You're work, it's like you're trying to support the other side, the anti-public land side. And it's like, no, I'm just pointing out something that's just not true. And it's the one kind of painful side for me a little bit is that I have I got some direct messages from, they're like lower level guys. And I don't mean that as an insult, but they're guys that have been clearing trail for 1 year for the Forest Service. Or they'll email being like, Cliff, like I lost my job. I work hard. Okay. I get it, dude. But like, I'm talking about something else that I just don't view as a truth. So do you have thoughts on that stuff, man?
Well, the Forest Service doesn't do anything useful anymore. Now, no, they don't. Now what
Yeah.
they do is they manage society. That's what they do. They don't manage the forest. So they don't do logging contracts anymore. And if they do, it's 1% of what it was 60 years ago. We
Yeah.
buy our lumber from Canada to build our houses.
Yeah.
You know, um, they don't clear trails. What they do is they join league with agencies like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and they make all these laws. And it's always, we're preventing trail erosion, or we're preventing the loss of a species. You know, and what we've got to quit doing is being so gullible and being so stupid. It and for me, I mean, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here, but for me, living here, and I moved here just to be in the wilderness as a very young adult, and I have been all my life. I mean, I get to see it, and it's so obvious. It's so obvious that the wolves have just decimated our wildlife. I mean, I was camped once in the Middle Fork, and I camped where there was good horse feed, but it was only a quarter mile down the trail. There was a really nice natural hot spring, and somebody probably 100 years earlier had rocked it. They put rock walls
Okay.
to make a pool out of it,
Sure.
and it was just absolutely the neatest place. You go take a hot bath every night. When you're elk hunting, you're all
Oh yeah,
dirty,
sure.
sweaty, and slimy. I go over there every night, and take a hot bath with a bar of soap and be just fresh as a daisy. And
Sure.
there was this nanny goat, this mama mountain goat that would come down and get the minerals out of that she had a baby with her, just a little baby billy goat.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And I got used to seeing her there all the time. Well, I heard wolves howling over there one night, just down from the camp. Went back the next evening to take a bath, and they had just ripped that baby mountain goat to pieces.
Oh,
And I don't know where the mother was. I mean, I don't know if they killed her or if she ran off.
sure.
There was cliffs right up behind it. And so she would just come down to get the minerals with her baby. Well, I have watched so much of this. We used to have moose behind every tree where I am right here in Idaho before the wolves. And I mean moose everywhere. They were a huge hazard on the highway. They brought the wolves in and the wolves started populating. And we went through a 10-year stretch where you couldn't see a moose. You couldn't find a moose. I mean, they were gone, wiped out, and they're much more vulnerable to the wolves than the elk are,
Yeah.
you know. But I have watched this, I have witnessed it, and people want to argue with me. Take your argument somewhere else. I live here. I'm not living in New York City or Los Angeles or any other place. And not only do I live here, I'm an avid outdoorsman. If the feds are going to come in and say, yeah, we're going to overrun your area with grizzly bears now and give them protected status, guess what's going to happen to every grizzly I cross in the wilderness? And the statute of limitations is run out. They can't prove it. I like the elk. I like the deer. I like the wildlife. I like mothers and their children to be able to go out in the woods safely and recreate. And on top of all those reasons, the main reason is the government has no legal right, no legal authority to force protected species down our throat. And when they become dangerous protected species, and I'm for the people, I'm for the Constitution, I'm for law. These aren't, I'll give you a perfect example. A grizzly bear attacks you down here and you shoot it. They've made a law that you have 3 days to get into town and report it to the authorities. Yeah, right. So my wife, who's an ex-district attorney, she was an elected district attorney. She's all about constitutional rights. I don't think any of these jazz bows have ever read the Constitution, nor do they care what's in it, or they would have read it. But
Oh, dude, what is a jazz bow? I don't mean to interrupt you, dude. What the hell is that?
A piece of shit.
Okay, all right. I'm on. Keep going.
So my wife goes, Tim, you see all the time, people get put up on the witness stand and they plead the fifth. She says you have a Fifth Amendment, constitutional right to not incriminate yourself. So if a grizzly attacks you and you kill it, it's unconstitutional for them to make a rule saying you got to go turn yourself in and say you killed it.
I got you.
You'll go to court and, because they find out later you did it, they've got you on a trail cam or some eyewitness or something, but you'll go to court and the judge will say, well, you had 3 days to report this and you didn't, which proves you were just being nefarious. No, I have a Fifth Amendment right not to self-incriminate. And they have rules like this from A to Z that are unconstitutional. Nobody challenges it, and they're totally engineering our society to be stupid, to be dependent, and to not question anything. Shut up and be a good comrade.
Tim, dude, I don't want to keep you on for 5 hours, and I think that was a good one to end on, man. Because I'm gonna have you on again. But I think that was like the ultimate closing. I've got like several other things that I want to talk to you about, man. So will you promise to be on again?
Anytime you invite me, even if we're in Africa or wherever we are, you invite me and we have a chance to spread the truth on whatever forum it is. As long as it's true, I'm interested in talking about it.
I love it, dude. I think we may break the internet on this one, but I love it, dude. And I love I love your perspective on things. I love the fact that more on like the elk stuff we talked about too. Like I love the fact that I know it's based on real world experience. Like we got into the cartridge thing. You have a very rational approach to it. I love all that stuff, man. So I appreciate you spending your time talking with me. But I want to give you a chance, man, to tell tell the viewers where they can follow you, anything about your business you want them to know, any of that stuff, Tim.
Well, sure. I own Buffalo Bore Ammunition. You can see all these blue and yellow ammo boxes behind me. And we have babe, what's the exact name of our channel? Is it just Buffalo Bore Ammunition? And Outdoors. Buffalo Bore Ammunition. Okay. Outdoors. See, I don't even know the name of my own channel.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
That's
if people put in Tim Sundles, they put in Buffalo Board, it'll pop up on YouTube. You guys are got a lot of momentum now. I've noticed it as a viewer, so people won't have a problem finding you on there. You guys are on Instagram too.
yeah. Kim does all kinds of posts. I refuse to do it. I'm not a digital guy. You know,
I love it, dude.
I'm allergic to this digital stuff. I mean, I break out in hives and a cold sweat if I have to do any of the technical, uploading and all that stuff.
No, I get it. What I'll do for everybody is I'll put your links in the description of the video. But thank you, Tim. I appreciate you being on, man.
Thank you, Cliff, and I'm welcome. I'm happy to come back anytime.
We'll do it, man. If you enjoyed this content, do me a huge favor. Subscribe on whatever platform you consume it on. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever works for you guys. Everything else is on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go there and it's going to be very apparent to you that I work my ass off just to not have a real job. All the hunts I guide, all the seminars I put on, all the unique experiences I offer, and the membership site, all the details are there.